For reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of God in Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva the author. Shrimvatam Swakata Krishna, Punya Shravana Kirtanaha, Vidyantasto Vadrani, Vedunoti Suhritsatam, Shri Krishna, the personality of God, who is the Paramatma, super soul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the Urshitar's messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Nashtapreshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Utamashloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistaki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. So we got a reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, and without any bookmark, I randomly opened the book to the exact page. Strangely, the book is ready to go. So it's second canto, Chapter 5, The Cause of All Causes, text 17. Tasyapi Drashtur Ishasya Tasyapi Drashtur Ishasya
Tasyapi Drashtur Ishasya.
Everybody dropped off. Let's try again. Tasyapi Drashtur Ishasya Kuta. This one I'm going to break up. Stasya. Akila. Atmanaha. Stasya Kilatmanaha. Kuta Stasya Kilatmanaha. Difficult one.
Did you get that last word?
The big one?
Yeah.
Again. Stasya Kilatmanaha. Yeah. Srijam Srijami, Swishto, Aham, Srijami, Swishtoham, Srijami, Shristoham. And here comes a nice little short word. I'll do it in parts. Ikshaya, Eva. This is from the word meaning. Ikshaya, Iva. Ikshaya, Iva is from Eva. So let's see. I better do that differently. It won't be. Ikshaya, Iva. Yeah, A is long because it's another A. Abhichoditaha. So there's a lot of combinations here. So Ikshayaiva Bichoditaha. There's two Ikshayaiva Bichoditaha. It's two I. It's Ikshayaiva Bichoditaha. Okay, let's give it a try. Tasyapi drashtur ishaya. Ishasya, sorry. Yeah. Tasyapi drashtur ishasya. Kutastasya kilatmanaha. Srijami, Swishtoham. Ikshayaiva Bichoditaha. Tasyapi drashtur ishasya. Kutastasya kilatmanaha. Srijami, Swishtoham. Ikshayaiva Bichoditaha. I think that was two. Tasyapi drashtur ishasya. Kutastasya kilatmanaha. Srijami, Swishtoham. Ikshayaiva Bichoditaha.
Tasyapi dristo ishaya. Kutastasya kilatmanaha. Srijami Shristoham.
Srijami, Swishtoham.
Ikshaya Bichodataha.
Ikshayaiva Bichoditaha.
Tasyapi drastur ishasya. Kutastasya kilatmanaha. Srijami Shristoham. Ikshayaiva Bichoditaha.
Tasyapi drashtur ishasya. Kutastasya kilo manaha. Srijami Shristoham. Ikshayaiva Bichoditaha.
That's it? And Tasya,
Tasya,
his, api,
api,
certainly, drashtu, of the seer, ishasya, of the controller, kutastasya, of the one who is over everyone's intelligence, akila atmanaha, of the supersoul, swijyam, that which is already created, swijami, do I discover, srishta, created, aham, myself, ikshaya, by glance over, eva, exactly, abhichoditaha, being inspired by him. Okay, translation and purport by His Divine Grace is Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Inspired by him only, I discover what is already created by him, Narayana, under his vision as the all-pervading supersoul, and I also am created by him only. Please repeat. Inspired by him only, I discover what is already created by him, Narayana, under his vision as the all-pervading supersoul, and I also am created by him only. Report. Even Brahma, the creator of the universe, admits that he is not the actual creator, but is simply inspired by the Lord Narayan, and therefore creates under his superintendence those things already created by him, the supersoul of all living entities. Two identities of soul, the supersoul and the individual soul, are admitted to be in the living entity, even by the greatest authority of the universe. The supersoul is the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, whereas the individual soul is the eternal servitor of the Lord. The Lord inspires the individual soul to create what is already created by the Lord, and by the goodwill of the Lord, a discoverer of something in the world is accredited as the discoverer. It is said that Columbus discovered the Western Hemisphere, but actually the tract of land was not created by Columbus. The vast tract of land was already there by the omnipotency of the Supreme Lord, and Columbus, by dint of his past service unto the Lord, was blessed with the credit of discovering America. Of course, a lot of people dispute that, say we already had America here, but that's a different subject. Similarly, no one can create anything without the sanction of the Lord, since everyone sees according to his ability. This ability is also awarded by the Lord according to one's willingness to render service unto the Lord. One must therefore be voluntarily willing to render service unto the Lord, and thus the Lord will empower the doer in proportion to his surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord. Lord Brahma is a great devotee of the Lord. Therefore he has been empowered or inspired by the Lord to create such a universe as the one manifested before us. The Lord also inspired Arjuna to fight in the field of Kurukshetra as follows. Tasmat twamutishta yasho labhasva jitva shatrun bhunktva rajam samridham mayaivaite nihata purvameva nimittamatram bhavasavya sachin. Bhagavad Gita 11:33. The battle of Kurukshetra, or any other battle at any place or at any time, is made by the will of the Lord, for no one can arrange such mass annihilation without the sanction of the Lord. The party of Duryodhana insulted Draupadi, a great devotee of Krishna, and she appealed to the Lord as well as to all the silent observers of this unwarranted insult. Arjuna was then advised by the Lord to fight and take credit. Otherwise, the party of Duryodhana would have been killed anyway by the will of the Lord. So Arjuna was advised just to become the agent and take the credit for killing great generals like Bhishma and Karna. In the Vedic writings such as the Katha Upanishad, the Lord is described as the Sarva Bhuta Antaratma, or the personality of Godhead who resides in everyone's body and who directs everything for one who is a soul surrendered unto him. Those who are not surrendered souls are put under the care of the material nature. Brahmayan sarvabhutani yatra rudhani mayaya, Bhagavad Gita 1861, which I'll read right now. It didn't go. I can't read it right now. Sometimes the phone doesn't go where it's supposed to. Anyway, therefore, they are allowed to do things on their own account and suffer the consequences themselves. Anyway, that's the one about the soul is seated as on a machine made of material energy. And the Lord is directing the wanderings. Let's see. Devotees, huh?
It's right here.
Your phone, would you read it?
Yeah. This is Bhagavad Gita 1861.
Yeah.
The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated as on a machine made of material energy.
Thanks. Yeah, my phone would just jump back to the top. It didn't go. Devotees like Brahma and Arjuna do not do anything on their own account, but as fully surrendered souls, they always await indications from the Lord. Therefore, they jumped again. Who does that? I can read that from the book too, but I'm not. I have to find that too. They always, as fully surrendered souls, they always await indications from the Lord. Therefore, they attempt to do something which appears very wonderful to ordinary vision. One of the Lord's name is Urukram, or the one whose actions are very wonderful and are beyond the imagination of the living being. So the actions of his devotees sometimes appear very wonderful due to the direction of the Lord. Beginning from Brahma, the topmost intelligent living entity within the universe, down to the smallest ant, every living entity's intelligence is overseen by the Lord in his transcendental position as the witness of all actions. The subtle presence of the Lord is felt by the intelligent man who can study the psychic effects of thinking, feeling, and willing. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. In case anybody doesn't know it, we just had cataract surgery. I'm still feeling slightly weird because my eye's different, still recovering. So I feel like explaining that because I don't know if I'm going to speak well or not. It's distracting.
See well or not.
Or speak well. I don't know whether I can speak well. I don't know if I can speak well.
Is it both of you or just you?
We both got one eye done, and we're both going to have to get another eye done. Turned out we both had cataracts, so they just said, both of you get it done. So,
It's 2 for the price of 1.
yeah, still feels a little weird. I see better, but it still feels weird. So, yeah, when you go to something like that, it like takes over. That's why Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, when he was a young disciple of Gaura-Kishora Das Babaji, asked him to Srila Gaura-Kishora Das Babaji was blind from cataracts. So apparently they had cataract surgery of some sort in those days. So Bhaktisiddhanta wanted to take Gaura-Kishora Das Babaji to Calcutta for some surgery, and he wouldn't go. He didn't want to go into the city. But another reason to not want to do it, I mean, it's good because then you can see, but it's completely a materialistic, when you go to the doctor, it's a completely materialistic experience every time. You're not a soul, you're not a mind, you're just a body. And then they give you medicine and you still feel that way. It's weird. So I'm recovering. So,
We pray for you, pray for you.
thank you. Make sure I don't forget Krishna. And I'm worried about thinking about my eye all the time. So, anyway, the most interesting sentence to me of this purport is the subtle presence of the Lord is felt by the intelligent man who can study the psychic effects of thinking, feeling, and willing. So Prabhupada is saying it's not that we can't know that, we can't feel or sense the super soul. We can, and we can relate to him, and he will by our doing devotional service, he'll be pleased, and he will give us, he'll be pleased and give us knowledge. So I was reading in the 3rd canto. I happened to be reading and I discovered a really nice verse that relates very well. So we go there. Also in the 5th chapter, the 4th verse. So I'll just do the English. Therefore, O great sage, this is the Durata speaking to Maitreya. Therefore, O great sage, please give me instruction on the transcendental devotional service of the Lord, so that he who is situated in the heart of everyone can be pleased to impart from within knowledge of the absolute truth in terms of the ancient Vedic principles delivered only to those who are purified by the process of devotional service. So I like this. I'm going to read this purport. It's not too long. A couple of longish paragraphs. As already explained in the 1st canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the absolute truth is realized in 3 different phases, although they are one and the same, in terms of the knower's capacity to understand. The most capable transcendentalist is the pure devotee of the Lord, who is without any tinge of fruitive action or philosophical speculation. By devotional service only does one's heart become completely purified from all material coverings like karma, jnana, and yoga. Only in such a purified stage does the Lord, who is seated in everyone's heart with the individual soul, give instruction so that the devotee can reach the ultimate destination of going back home, back to Godhead. So this karma, jnana, and yoga means karma, you still want to enjoy, still want to make some arrangements, whether you're trying to do karma kanda or whether, just trying to hope for some blessing from the Lord or something that's about just trying to get spiritual pleasure or something, material pleasure or something. And then jnana, still trying to figure it out by yourself. And yoga means specifically mystic yoga, because every other time this list is given, it means mystic, I'm having trouble talking. Mystic powers, seeking mystic powers. So as long as when we become completely free of these tendencies, which sort of mix with our devotion for a long time at first. That's why we're not pure devotees, we've got one or the other of these. So when we get purified, so then the Lord is seated in the heart, gives instruction. He gives instruction from the beginning in a way, but because we're not completely purified, we don't hear it. So this is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 10:10. Tesham satata yuktanam vajatam. So that is, to those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. To show them special mercy, this is 11. I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy with a shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. So, this is us continuing. Only when the Lord is satisfied with the devotional service of the devotee does he impart knowledge, as he did for Arjuna and Uddhava. The jnanis, yogis, and karmis cannot expect this direct cooperation of the Lord. They are not able to satisfy the Lord by transcendental loving service, nor do they believe in such service to the Lord. Now that's the difference between them and us, because we believe in devotional service. We may have some of these tendencies still in us, so we're not pure yet, but we are doing devotional service the best we can, so Krishna is beginning to be pleased with us. So and according to our capacity to hear, we can slowly become able to sense or hear the guidance of the Lord in the heart. So the bhakti process as performed under the regulative principles of Vaidhi Bhakti or devotional service following the prescribed rules and regulations is defined by the revealed scriptures and confirmed by great acharyas. This practice can help the neophyte devotee to rise to the stage of Raga Bhakti in which the Lord responds from within as the Chaitya Guru, Chaitya means heart, or the spiritual master as super consciousness. So as the spiritual master in the heart. All transcendentalists other than devotees make no distinction between the individual soul and the super soul because they miscalculate the super consciousness and the individual consciousness to be one and the same. Actually, met somebody once, a long time ago. It seemed abstract that there are some people in the world who believe a soul and super soul are the same. And it was like an abstract thing. Okay, some people maybe in India think this. But I met somebody who insisted it was true, so it's real. People really think like that. Such miscalculation by the non-devotees makes them unfit to receive any direction from within, and therefore they are bereft of the direct cooperation of the Lord. After many, many births, when such a non-dualist comes to sense that the Lord is worshipable, and that the devotee is simultaneously one with and different from the Lord, then only can we surrender unto the Lord Vasudeva. Pure devotional service begins from that point. The process of understanding the absolute truth adopted by the misguided non-dualist is very difficult, whereas the devotee's way of understanding the absolute truth comes directly from the Lord, who is pleased by devotional service. On behalf of many neophyte devotees, Vidura, at the very first instance, inquired from Maitreya about the path of devotional service, by which the Lord, who is seated in the heart, can be pleased. So, in a sense, there's different levels or definitions of pure devotional service. Prabhupada at times said all his disciples were pure devotees because he taught them pure devotional service, and practicing it was a pure thing. So they were already taught not to seek, not to try to do jnana yoga. They were taught not to do karma kanda, try to have sense gratification and try to make karma work for them, and taught already just love Krishna. So from that teaching, all his disciples are pure devotees because following him. With time, after he left, I think sometimes some devotees got interested in, how can we pull strings with this knowledge? So they go into the karma kanda, or the jnana yoga or something. Perhaps I haven't met anybody who is seeking mystic power, but there may be some. So, but Prabhupada was teaching that, even though neophytes, but they were pure devotees because they were following his instructions. And that's Vaidhi Bhakti, and it's the beginning of pure devotional service. On the other hand, we don't claim to be pure devotees because we are neophytes. We have anartas, we forget Krishna during the day, on and off, like that. And so we still worry about our material situations and stuff like that. So in that sense, we're not up on the higher levels of past nishta on the ladder of those 9 stages of bhakti. Nishta is halfway, and that's where you're steady internally and externally, like 24/7 in devotional service. Then you can go to the higher levels. So we're still working on our nartas, which is under that. Most of us got Bhajan Kriya behind us because that's where you get trained up by a spiritual master and learn the rules and regulations and stuff. So then that long anarta nivritti. If we avoid facing our nartas, it takes a long time. Or we can work on it and go a little faster and keep on practicing keep faithful to our vows and studying and working through it, we can make progress. And then pure devotee is like prema. So in one sense, of course, we're not pure devotees yet. And in another sense, we're all pure devotees. Because we were taught only the pure devotee path. We weren't taught the other paths. We were taught only the pure devotee path. And so on that path and practicing Vaidhi Bhakti, that's pure devotion too, the beginning of it. And that pleases Krishna. So it's possible to sense his presence. Prabhupada said right here. Sometimes people are afraid to say you can sense Super Soul, that they shouldn't claim that, but you can to varying degrees as you grow. And one thing Super Soul does is when we first hear the philosophy, when we read the books first time, it's like a whole lot like an alphabet soup of information bits. And inside the heart, Super Soul, as we do devotional service, he's shining the lamp of knowledge, which reveals to us the wholeness of these things. So as time goes on, the wholeness becomes a real part of us, to understand the wholeness of this truth. So when we read the books again, we say, well, that's where that bit of information came from, but it's all part of the whole. And we can speak it, we can put it in our own words to some degree. And if we keep reading and practicing, that light keeps shining, it becomes more and more ours, this transcendental knowledge. And then, so that's the super soul. That's one thing super soul does. Super soul is actively giving intelligence. He's not only overseeing the intelligence of all living entities, and all living entities have it. Somewhere in here, I think I read that the ant, even, they have intelligence too. They have that, because every living entity has a subtle body, and part of the subtle body is intelligence. Mind, intelligence, and false ego. So, according to the level of the computer in that body, the brain, they have some intelligence, and they may at least seeking what they materially need, and getting help from the super soul, who reveals things through the intelligence. You get an idea in your intelligence that comes from the super soul. Sometimes you get an idea in your mind, and that doesn't come from the super soul. So then we have to learn to discriminate. We have to become knowledgeable so we can discriminate. But sometimes the mind says, yeah, why don't I do such and such? And that's not from the super soul. So, but sometimes the intelligence comes, the image comes of what to do that's right. And that's from the super soul. It's in the intelligence. The intelligence discriminates what's right. The mind is dealing with material desires, thinking, feeling, willing. I'm going to do some action because I want to. I have some memories of my material desires. I have some, lust or some desire for sense gratification or desire to avoid some pain. So that's self-centered like that. And so our mind is busy doing that. So one has to be, intelligence happens anyway, but one has to be sure to discriminate, one has to be knowledgeable. So we have to read these books. We have to read them probably again and again. Go back, which was hard for me. I read all the way through, and it was a big deal, but I read all the way through and I finished. And then all the books were equal to me. I had read them all. Now where do I start? And so then for a long time I didn't read very much, because I became confused with what I should read next, because I had read them all once. But finally, I got past that. So I'm, reading systematically here and there. I read through a whole canto, or I read a whole chapter, or read some verses here, or something like that. I haven't managed to start again reading the whole thing systematically. But I study topics like that, too. And, of course, let's see, what else would I say? What time is it? Well, it's 1:15 now. Would anybody like to, maybe I'll think of something more, but if anybody wants to ask questions or make comments, yes.
I was just thinking, like you were saying in the report and everything, that we, can gradually get to that point. You're talking about that, it's, we have an artist and all this. But I think we're so fortunate because we're at the temple. We've been given this morning program, which, it's protects our spiritual life. I can just imagine nowadays the tendency and it's shifted to so many devotees are living at home. They've never gotten training as bhaktis or anything, like at the temple. And they probably don't have service. So I feel like a little worried for this next generation that's not getting, back in the old days, a lot of us experienced Sankirtan, or, just like such austerities. We're not at the temple, we must depend on Krishna for all these things, and the spiritual master gave blessings for all these things. But I just don't see how someone that doesn't have the protection of a temple nearby, or, devotees giving class and things, I just don't see how, if we find it hard, and we've been around the temple all our devotional lives, I just feel like, we have such more of a guarantee. It's not a guarantee, but we're so more fixed than a person that's living outside that doesn't have strong association, and then they have to deal with their mind. Like one lady that's my friend, she just put some random comment like, oh, I don't need to go to the temple, I have my mind in my heart, and I don't need philosophy, or something like that. She just kind of threw that out there, and I responded and I said, devotees need association of pure devotees and of advanced devotees, and it's very important. And otherwise, our mind can get the best of us, and our mind can be our worst enemy or best friend, but if we're thinking, oh, this sense gratification right here, that's better than what I would get at the temple, then you're not having someone that's fixed guiding you. And so I could just see, like, that person out there, I don't think they're initiated, I don't know, because they don't go by initiated name on Facebook, but she was just saying, and then she commented back after I said that, she said, oh, I'm just saying, like, it's best to be kind. Like, perhaps she had an experience at the temple where devotees weren't kind, so then she's like, I don't need the temple, I just want to be, I just feel like kindness and love are the most important, So she's right in a way, but also you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater kind of thing. So I was just making that comment.
Yeah, I think about that too. I know what you mean, that there's a lot of, and a lot of people feel that because they can go online, they have everything. And of course we had this experience of real boot camp, and everybody isn't in the army. And it is understood that it can take lifetimes. And we don't know if we've got maybe similar kinds of lifetimes in our past, where we said, oh yeah, it's really nice, but we just did a little bit.
Right.
So we don't really know what we have in our past. And this is not a very nice time on the earth, so it'd be better to get out of here fast, but you got to go through what you got to go through. One thing about Krishna consciousness is you don't have to totally worry. It's not like Christianity. You don't get it this time. You don't accept Jesus the way they say you got to accept Jesus, then you're going to hell forever. It's not like that. We know there's always growing. There's always more chances, and any devotional service rendered is never lost. So they're on the path.
Right.
But you do kind of worry about people not really. I know what you mean anyways. We have to do our best and keep on trying to help people.
Krishna was next.
Oh, you're next. Okay.
No, he raised his hand before me.
Okay.
Well, there were two things. It's amazing that Prabhupada mentioned about Columbus. And it is some kind of karmic thing that Columbus gets all this credit, even if he was not first and Leif Erikson was here, but Columbus gets it.
Leif Erikson was here, the Native Americans were
here.
Humans, they were already...
But I guess the fact is that Prabhupada further states that Columbus didn't make America, and he really didn't discover it, he just kind of tripped over it. And it was already here. But Prabhupada speaks truth, and in his statement there, it's pretty deep. He would have said that. At the end of this, it talks about thinking, feeling, and willing. And I did a little quick search, and believe it or not, the Waldorf School is third in line under the search engine I used. They teach thinking, feeling, and willing to their little students. And we have one of our devotees a couple of devotees work at a Waldorf school.
Is it Waldorf or Montessori?
No, this is Waldorf.
Is the one that Leonardo teaches at is Waldorf?
Just like the salad thing. That's how I remember it. It's like, what's the name of that school? Waldorf. So at the Waldorf school, they teach concepts on thinking, feeling, and willing. And I just thought that was pretty amazing that this comes up again and again for us. And it is considered a high thinking. And also, I think the founder of the Waldorf school was a Bhagavad Gita reader too.
I don't know, maybe that's why. I don't know if, so he was about to be a leader.
Yeah,
but it's not like thinking, feeling, and willing is a higher thinking. It's just that we know about it.
Right.
That's what happens.
That's the truth. Yeah, everybody's truth.
Thinking about going to the store and getting a candy bar. Thinking about it. Feels like it would be a good thing to do. Yeah, I decided to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to go.
Gets in your memory, and then you act, and you find yourself willing, which means you're a willing participant and act.
Yeah, which you decided to do it. Yeah.
Right. So we need a, as it said, Prabhupada sort of speak strongly on this, nicely on this too. The subtle presence of the Lord is felt by the intelligent man who can study the psychic effects of thinking, feeling, and willing. That's pretty deep.
So we can discover. So we can discover the Lord in our hearts.
And study these.
We're not like being puffed up or imagining that we're talking to Krishna or something. We can actually connect with the super soul in the heart.
And last thing, I was online this morning, and Maharaj came on with, I haven't looked at his presentation yet, but he did a little short talk on self-discovery without ego, without, out of balanced ego, something like that. Because you could discover yourself, but then you might think, oh, I'm the super soul.
Mm-hmm.
When you discover yourself, then you should see yourself as different from the super soul.
Yeah.
But like you said, you met somebody, and I think we've all met, probably been somebody, that we thought we were the super soul too. That was me making that great decision.
Well, then.
Oh, I came up with that.
Yeah, but the super soul are very beautiful. And we think, oh, that's me. Oh, okay.
That's me.
Yes.
Excuse me.
Thank you.
Prabhupada said to spend 80% of your time in the company of devotees.
Oh, this is it?
So obviously the person online is not doing that. So now I think we can probably learn everything from his books. He said it's all there. Now we have a set of books here, 5 volumes of letters from Srila Prabhupada, almost 2,000 pages of tiny, tiny little print. There's so much on each page. Now, that's online now, and there's so much in there that you don't find in any book anywhere. So that might be something you might want to look into reading. And you were talking about sometimes it takes so long and it takes lifetimes. My ex-husband, we were married for 3 months when he told me he was an atheist.
Ooh.
He used to go to Catholic church with me up until that time. I asked him to pray with me one day. We had a very serious problem, and he shouted at me, "I've never prayed and I'm never going to." So right about that time, I met Jayapataka Swami, my guru, and I asked him what to do. I was already pregnant. I couldn't just leave. I didn't want to put my child in daycare. And he said, bring in prasadam, more and more and more, temple prasadam, bring in prasadam. So at the Philadelphia temple, they have all the goods from Gita Nagri. They have a huge table every Sunday, bread, cakes, cheese, yogurt, and I would carry 2 Walmart bags stuffed to the brim. And at the time I had 3 children, so I had to hold 3 hands and do that. And that was his lunch for the week that he would take to work. And one day I woke up living here. It had been 18 years that I had been bringing temple prasadam hand over fist, and nothing had changed. The kids and I had to whisper the name Krishna in the house, or there would be a great big trip. We were not allowed to mention Krishna. We had to whisper.
You lived here?
We moved here in '88. He agreed to move here, and then once he got here, he couldn't stand it. And so he told me, he said, the things you do in this house all the time are driving me crazy. And so I went back to Guru Maharaj. And I said, it's been 18 years. And he said, when you are only taking prasadam and not chanting Hare Krishna, it takes a long, long time. Now, I had figured out, after speaking to Guru Maharaj, I sat down and figured out, I had brought him 1,000 plates over 18 years, not including the cookies, the samosas, the extra stuff I used to buy at the temple. And it did not have the tiniest effect.
The time what?
Tiniest effect on him. He came here with me 3 times. In the 11 years that we lived here, he came with me 3 times. Once for Thanksgiving, once for Panim, and I can't remember the 3rd time, but in 11 years. And then he, you know, like the elephant that gets out of the water and throws dust, he would have to complain once he got home.
So that's the end of the story?
Well, that is an example of it taking so long.
Maybe next life.
And
Or shows.
yeah, and after I realized it had been 18 years with no change, the next word he said, I divorced her.
Mm. But then in his next life, he'll have the same opportunity to have prasadam.
It's not wasted. And
Yeah.
Guru Maharaj really didn't want me to divorce him, but I snapped. I'm a Capricorn too, and we take a lot, and then boom.
Yeah. Oh, that was your words, I divorce you? Or his words? Who said
Oh
it?
no, the next critical remark he made about Krishna,
Then you said that.
that was the straw, and I completely went ballistic.
18 years.
I
that's a
had
long
held
time.
it in for 18 years, 1,000 plates,
Mm.
and I could, you know, I went berserk, and I didn't come down for about 2 years.
Didn't come down where?
To be sane again.
Oh.
Oh. Oh.
You know, the hatred that I had built up over 18 years. I used to pray to Krishna, please take away this anger, because you cannot, I read somewhere, you cannot make spiritual progress if you're angry. I read books written by Nazis, by Jews that forgave Nazis. I read everything that Prabhupada ever said about forgiveness. I read what the priests said about forgiveness in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Prabhupada said, if we do not forgive, then we cannot live. But it took me years it wasn't until November 3 years ago that I woke up and I was okay again.
Wow. Long struggle. Thanks for sharing. Yes.
I didn't have the same kind of situation, but my husband also was a devotee, Indian Mary's friend. And I also talked to our spiritual master about it, and he said that it could very well be his first lifetime of contact with devotional service. And that maybe also in the mix was the fact that he wouldn't quit eating meat. Because as long as that's where you're at, then it's very, very difficult. He wouldn't eat the cow. Because I couldn't tolerate it. I didn't cook for him. I didn't wash his plates. But I was with him for 7 years, and so it just, everybody is actually, has an eternal loving relationship with the Supreme Lord. We know that, and like as you said, it will come. It will come. Once I heard when I first became a devotee, this Prabhu gave a class, and he said, because of the extreme mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, every soul that was present is actually at the time of his coming, and then I don't know if subsequently, maybe as well, is they probably would be the same souls. Is on their way back home. They're just separated in time from reaching the goal. So, all these people that somehow, causelessly, or it's hard to trace out the thread, but they had the opportunity to come in contact with Prabhupada's ISKCON, and So, they'll get the benefit. Kalindi and Narayan's father came to visit me at Marari Sevak one time. That's where I joined. And while we were taking prasadam, that someone had put on a tape and Prabhupada was chanting, like some bhajan. And he literally got up and covered his ears and went like racing out of the temple. He couldn't even like tolerate the sound of Prabhupada's voice. So how unfortunate. But we should just pray for these people because, even we're struggling and we have the highest knowledge. What to think of somebody that, doesn't know or doesn't want to know, but, it's going to happen. Just like Jagai and Madhava yesterday, our spiritual master has been talking about that pastime. And Jagai and Madhava didn't even want the mercy. They didn't even want it, and they got it. So that can happen. And then somebody asked the question, well, can we also get that mercy? And he said, why not? They got it, they didn't want it. If you ask for it, if you pray for it, if you make some effort to get it, why wouldn't you? And go back to the lotus feet of the Lord. So I'm just recently feeling really positive about the possibility of going back home. For 40 years, I just thought it's kind of it's out of reach, and of course it is a gradual process, but it's a possibility. It's a real possibility, and if we have that understanding and that conviction, and then we can somehow convey whatever we have to others, or at least pray for them, then this is like Lord Chaitanya's movement is. It's inconceivable that Prabhupada said there's no limit to the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So just keep doing it.
There's actual training against what we teach. The Christians are taught that, and I don't know if at least the Christians are taught to be afraid of knowledge, because that fruit that you go to hell that came from the devil. Knowledge comes from the devil, so don't trust anybody who talks about spiritual knowledge. They're actually taught that. And of course the scientists are teaching against it. So much evidence that that's all nonsense,
That was the tree of knowledge if they ate the fruit.
Yeah, but you can analyze that a different way because it's not just that it's knowledge is bad. It's Adam knew Eve. That doesn't mean he met her and got acquainted. Adam knew Eve means that he knew, by experience. So carnal knowledge, he knew, but then knowledge is a stronger word than just knowing stuff.
And they got kicked out of the garden according to their teachers, so they wouldn't eat the tree of life and stay stuck in that situation.
Well, yeah, we're all Adam and Eve, and that they were innocently not clothed in animal skin. We're clothed in animal skins, we're mammals. We're clothed in animal skins. They were naked of that in a sense. Maybe they were actually not naked, but maybe they were in their spiritual bodies, and they're walking with God every day in the garden. And then they got an idea that they wanted to eat from the fruit. Fruit is karma, from the tree of knowledge and of good and evil. So they wanted to know good and evil. Let me see if I can do some good and evil and see some fruit.
When is
so
the snake that put that thought in her mind?
The snake, in that story, it's the snake who put the thought in the mind. But it corresponds with our teaching in that way.
Thinking, feeling,
yeah.
and
So I think, Kaivalya?
I just wanted to say for Mother Jayapatni that in the case of Neil, I really feel like, his daughter, especially Jayanti, is, doing things that we can't even imagine with the milking of the cows. Taking care of cows, you're going to go back to Krishna.
That's her heart and
that's
soul.
his ticket.
Yeah.
That's his ticket back for some type of liberation.
And he was willing to pay for Gurukula. He just basically didn't care, here's the money.
He's done devotional
He
service.
had a lot of money here. This doesn't matter to me.
He helps Jayanti, he gives her trucks or cars, whatever.
Yeah, he does
So
now.
I feel like that's definitely in his favor for
He
getting
was serving us. It says in the Bhagavatam that the man is serving the wife and children. So he was serving us. He was serving the Gurukula.
So yeah, he needs a lot of credit.
Thank you, Kavalya. That helps me. And Haridwani, it says somewhere in the books that as long as you're eating meat, you're not going to understand.
Mm.
And
Yeah,
he's
blocks.
Keep
No,
you dull.
he quit eating meat.
Spiritual.
He kept telling me that he wanted to leave me so he could go eat meat. I would allow meat on the property. But once we were divorced, now he's married to a vegan woman.
Yeah. So,
Krishna tricked him.
Yeah. Can't get away from this. The same.
Prabhupada said that it's, I don't know if he used the word mafia, but he said it's like the mafia family. You can't leave because you know too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, Guru Buddha always says that.
So anyway, I was thinking about how we like to, sometimes we say, in class we say, we're so fortunate, we have this knowledge. Well, what is this? I was thinking, what is the specific fortunate thing? Because we know that we want to love God, we want to love Krishna, I'm comparing it, in Christian mind or something. We want to love Krishna just to love Krishna. We have knowledge of how wonderful he is, and we have knowledge that we want to love Krishna just to love him. And everybody else is praying, God, give me this blessing, give me this, give me that, I have this problem, please solve it. And what is wonderful is we want to just know how to love Krishna. That's what's so special.
Yeah, and then actually the goal is like to come to the point where you don't care what's going on in this,
Mm-hmm.
arena, but you only want to please Krishna. And when Bhakti Purushottam Maharaj was here, he gave the example of the gopis, how that when they're fanning Krishna, a similar pastime is Garuka, Krishna's chariot driver in Dwarka. But he said the gopis, they're fanning Krishna, and they're starting to experience the astika bhavas, the 8, hair standing on end, tears coming from the eyes, the trembling.
Interferes.
But they're go away praying. Because they can't see clearly to render their service, so they only want to please Krishna, and that's right way up there.
Mm-hmm.
But as you were saying, the 9 steps of bhakti. And then one other thing I was going to ask you about, it isn't that you have to complete one step totally, like get rid of all the anarthas.
They overlap.
Is it? They're overlapping.
Yeah, and you start to get rid of anarthas as soon as you run into devotees and have some faith in it, so you give up your cigarettes or your beer or something. You start to get rid of your anarthas right in the beginning, and then your anarthas are almost gone when you're at nishta. When they're absolutely gone, you're at prema. So it's these things overlap, but they're separated for understanding.
Don't you think like we're getting like little glimpses of ruchi, the taste, and asati, the attachment, to like encourage us, and that now we're striving because otherwise it would be difficult to go on.
Mm-hmm.
And then in relation to what she was saying about you know too much. There's that verse from the Bhagavatam, which of course I'm horrible at quoting, but it's the paraphrasing is, if you want to enjoy society, friendship, and love, then don't go down to the banks of the Jamuna, where the beautiful blue cowherd boy is playing the flute and calling the gopis to come and dance. And then the purport is that because you'll never be the same. You won't even be able to enjoy properly because you've had that glimpse of the supreme happiness. So, I don't know, old age, Prabhupada said old age is a blessing because we're forced to realize that we have to get serious about becoming Krishna conscious because we don't have that much time left.
Yeah.
And I feel like that. I feel like I'm being coerced into trying to behave myself, give up my propensity to control and fix and, tell you what to do. And I would, just recently, you always hear how envious Matsarya is, like the worst thing of the 6 bad qualities, because actually all the other things can be dovetailed somehow in Krishna service, but not envious. And so I know that I'm not envious really. And then just recently I was like, oh yes I am. It's deep rooted, and okay, not just like, okay, pray to get, and not even that we're capable of doing it. Get rid of enviousness. Be, loving and concerned. Be humble. Be, you have to pray for those things because we're still, entrenched. We're still in the muck. We're still tied up. So, but if you pray, and then also, for me too, to focus on chanting Hare Krishna. I've been chanting Hare Krishna since I'm 23, and I'm 68. And how long is that? I'm not tasting. I'm not tasting the nectar of the holy name. I can't say that. And how important that is. And we know that example that Prabhupada gives about how a child should, calls out for the mother when, the mother's here and there, and then, Mama, she comes. That Krishna, then you call out for Krishna, but if okay. So wow, I gotta get with the program. I gotta get with serious chanting of Hare Krishna. Really. I came with 2 kids, holding one here, and the other one with a hand here, and then in this hand, chanting, pecking away at it. And that's no excuse, but I have not, by any sense, in any stretch of the imagination, come close to chanting. I wouldn't say purely, even nicely, I don't do it. And I'm just beginning to understand how important it is. So important. If anybody has any...
Doesn't it sometimes feel better that you chanted, that you started chanting? This world is, you're all wrapped up in the chaos of this world, and you just start chanting and,
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. But I can't say I do it with fixed attention.
No, that attention is...
And every once in a while, I'll be able to...
Like the 10 offenses, you're doing real good on the first 9, and then the 10th one, then it says, and then even pretty good on that one until you get the, it's also an offense to be inattentive while chanting rats, gotta have it.
Yeah, gotta have it go on there. And then to read the Shishashtakam also, and meditate on the Shishashtakam, I've heard is really helpful to focusing on the chanting.
And I started doing, because I also tend to space out as far as the counting. I tend to not notice I finished a round, and then I'm thinking, how many rounds did I just chant? And so I started doing, on days I'm not rushed too much anyways, I chant one verse of the Shikshastakam when I finish each of the first 8 rounds. So not only can I remember which round I'm on, but also have that little meditation every time with my rounds.
Nice.
And it's been kind of nice.
That's a good idea. I just feel like somehow if I just keep heading in the right direction,
Yep, of course, yep, just keep
and
going.
just baby steps, one after another, but just, by the mercy of the devotees and Srila Prabhupada, my spiritual master, just keep heading in the right direction somehow or other.
Thank you. Anybody else among the vast crowd still reading? Hey, thank you very much. All praise to Srila Prabhupada, all praise to Srila Bhagavatam.